Do you want to look like the expert you really are before you even say a single word on stage? Well, in today's episode of Present Influence, I'm joined by international speaking style advisor Kay Korsh, who helps professional speakers dress with intention, impact, and influence. From first impressions to fabric choices, we explore how your look communicates authority, credibility, and confidence long before you open your mouth. And if you've ever wondered what to wear on stage, how to balance authenticity with polish, or whether your outfit could be undermining your message, this episode can be your new style playbook. And if you are watching us on video, I will say in advance, I have realized that I probably shouldn't sweep my hair all the way back. It was not a good style choice, and I certainly do not look anything like as stylish as Kay in the video episode. And if you are watching on YouTube, please do like and subscribe and maybe even leave a comment. It does help people to find the show. It also means the world to me. I'd love to hear from you. Let's start the show. Welcome to Present Influence, the professional speaking show for people who want to impact, influence, and inspire with their talks. My name's John Ball, and I'm your guide on this journey to mastery-level communication skills. I'm very happy to welcome to the show my guest today, Kay Korsh. Kay, welcome to Present Influence. It's great to have you here.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Well, suitably, for those of our audience who can see the video, you are very stylishly dressed today. So it gives some clue as to what we're going to be talking about, which is style for the stage. You are someone who is helping professional speakers to look good on stage. Isn't that right?
Yes, exactly. That's what I got into about 5 years ago now.
Fantastic. How did you end up coming into this as a area of work?
I worked with celebrities and luxury brands for a long time and loved doing that. And then when COVID started, all of a sudden that all went dead for a while, and I've decided to play around and thought, what else can I try? And I met somebody who said to me, I think you should work with professional speakers because we all need you. At that time, I wasn't even sure. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that people create business out of this. And I started looking into this, and I met a wonderful woman, Maria Franzoni, who I started doing workshops together with for her cohorts. And it kind of rolled on from there. And I really love doing this. I think professional speakers is probably the closest it can get to actors and celebrities because they're also exposed to big audiences and they have interesting stories. So I love the aspect of it where you kind of have to look at the person and try to work out what the messaging is for them, how they can use their outfit as a tool, and help how their outfit can help them maximize on the impact they're creating. And yeah, I can't believe it's been so long already.
It's a great area of what's going. I think you're the only person I've ever come across who is doing this specifically. I had mentioned to you before, I met a lady who was doing styling for people for being on video, specifically during lockdown and COVID periods where people were on video all the time. She's helping people to look good on video. I'm not sure what she's moved into now, but certainly you're the only person I've come across who is focused on helping speakers look better on stage. And my goodness, do we need it? I know I do. But can you share with us some of the reasons why it's particularly important for speakers to focus on their style and their looks on stage?
Well, let me ask you, why do you think it's important for speakers?
Well, I'm someone who studies a lot of influence and persuasion. And just from that perspective alone, if you don't look the part, there's already going to be a disconnect between what you're saying and or anything else with the audience. They're going to be looking at you thinking, well, you say you're an expert in this, but you don't really look like it. You know, much like even when we go to an opticians or a nail tech, whatever, and they've got the white coats on, and they're probably not. Oh, well, opticians have medical training, I guess, but they don't need to be wearing white coats for what they do. But because we associate that with medical and procedural things, we see that they fit the part that they're playing. And as speakers, we need to do that as well to a degree. So I think for me, that's one of the main reasons. Would you agree with that?
Yes, a lot of it, a lot of the content I talk about is about minimizing the distractions and making sure that, as you said, your messaging and your outfit are aligned, because people are going to make judgments about us whether they want it or not. Or not. It's just human nature. So before you even start speaking, when you show up on stage or when people see you online, because we all have online presence now as well, they're going to stereotype, they're going to have some ideas about what you do, what kind of person you are, what kind of speaker you are.
Oop,
This
pardon
is
me.
just, as I mentioned earlier, just one of the tools to help them create that connection with bookers, with clients, with audience. And the way I talk about this is, think about the train of thought which your audience has the first instance they see you before you start speaking. And it's the simplest things possible. It's, for example, if somebody is an architect, you can do this exercise with your niche, with any niche you are in. If you're an architect, what do people think when they think of an architect in their brain? What do architects normally look like? And then you can look at your style and think whether it's aligned or not. Is there any way to improve that, to make more connections for people?
Right. I did an episode about maybe a month or so ago with a guy called John D'Amato, who is a professional photographer. And he does photography, headshots, and content shots, a general sort of portfolio for speakers to have those images. And so, well, you want to have different outfits, you want to look different particular ways. Probably someone would want to, probably should consult with somebody like you before doing all of that stuff, because yeah, you want those images, you want the stuff that's going to represent you well on your website, on your bios, or stuff you're going to be sending out to bookers, on your, even on your demo videos and things like that. So we want to be looking probably as good as we can make ourselves look, because ultimately aesthetics is still a part of presentation. How you look is part of your presentation and the whole concept of pulling everything together. So do you think this is vital for people? Where do you see perhaps speakers going wrong with this the most?
Well, I think the most practical thing where speakers go wrong is, does your outfit fit you well? So there are a lot of stuff I talk about is connected with credibility. And credibility, I put it into two different buckets, and you want to make sure that both of those tick the boxes on both of those. And one is the fit. A lot of it is to do with when you buy something new, making sure that the length of the trousers is correct, the length of the sleeve is correct, because if the fit is not correct, you might come across as sloppy. And if you come across as sloppy, you automatically lose credibility
Of
with your
course.
audience, and you don't want that. So
Yeah.
making sure that you've got a seamstress or a tailor who you can trust, and you can take your items to check if the length of the items is correct. And then just making sure that everything is done up. For example, I've got quite an elaborate blouse on, but if I move around, nothing is going to happen to it. But sometimes we've got some ribbons, women especially. There are some things which can get undone. Or, for instance, there was a story which somebody shared with me about a speaker who had a prop in his pocket. And when he
Right.
came on stage and started speaking, he took the prop out of the pocket, but the lining came out as well. So everything what people were looking at was the lining out of the pocket. They couldn't concentrate on his talk. So again, that created a lot of distraction, and we want to minimize that distraction. So practicing in your outfit and making sure that nothing goes wrong within and the fit is all correct. That's one of the very important things to do.
I think it is. I get exactly what you're saying about the distraction bit. I can remember one time seeing a guy, a great speaker, on stage, really animated, and his flies were undone. His zipper was undone on his trousers. And of course, everyone was noticing it. He hadn't realized it. Nothing was exposed, but everyone could see that the zipper was open, and it's all you could think about. You just watch it on
Yeah.
stage. Like, does he not know? Is he going to zip it up? Is he going to realize it? And of course, afterwards, somebody told him, but my goodness, I mean, something that small can completely distract your audience and take everyone off of what you're saying. So, yeah, these things really
Yes.
do matter. So I get that completely. Do you tend to work with a particular kind of speaker, or do you work with speakers from multiple areas, like people in corporate, people who are doing maybe more educational stuff or personal development, inspirational?
I love working with speakers for the specifically because they're all so different. So I appreciate working with people in different areas of expertise. So it's not boring for me. I guess I get bored quite easily. So having people in different niches where they need to create different styles is what I really like doing.
I can appreciate that. And so you generally do work with speakers from all sorts of different areas. And is that going to impact, like, depending on who their audience is that going to impact how they dress, or would you encourage people to dress more in alignment with their own style?
That's a really good question. When I start working with somebody, I always start with their personal comfort, what they're comfortable with, and that applies both to physical comfort and emotional comfort. So, physical is what kind of fabrics they prefer, what kind of fit do they like, more fitted stuff or looser stuff? Do they move around a lot? What kind of stuff works for them? And only after that, we look at their audience because it's really important for them to be comfortable, right? If they are not comfortable with what they wear, they're not going to be able to deliver their 100% to the audience. And then when we start looking at their audience, we're trying to align those two things. So we're trying to align the train of thought which the audience is going to have, what kind of messaging they want to have with their audience, and what they're comfortable with. And we're trying to find the middle ground where everybody is happy. And that's how we come up with their style.
So when you're working with a speaker to initially get their style and their comfort, does that mean kind of going through their wardrobe with them, or do you have a particular process that you take people through?
We always look at the existing wardrobe first, and this is when we have conversations about what kind of styles work for them, shapes, what their body type is, what their colors are. We do the color analysis, and we're having that conversation about what do you want your audience to think about you? How do you want to be perceived? What are the values in your within your brand? Are you playful or are you authoritative? Knowledgeable, credible, all of those words, what are the keywords of your business? And from then, we start building up the new wardrobe.
Do you ever get speakers who want to do something a little bit crazy for maybe just so they stand out?
Yes, I worked with a lot of speakers who, obviously, that's a big thing. You want to stand out as a speaker. However, I always say that it's not a necessity. If style is not your thing and you're creative in different ways, you don't have to. And that tends to put people at ease because they kind of feel relieved that they don't have to stand out if they don't want to. I worked with somebody whose business was related to a pirate, so there was like some pirate references, but I do like to keep it not costumey. I don't
Yeah.
appreciate when that goes into kind of the costume area, so it's always important that it's up to date and we can inject some references but still keep it modern
I'm
and
with you
current.
there. I think a professional keynote should not be veering into the area of pantomime or
Yes.
party costumes. Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to working with different people, I mean, obviously there are different body types as well. I'm just wondering, like, what for people with particularly larger or smaller figures? What are the guidelines for how we may want to dress according to our body types?
Wait, so do you mean according to the body types or according to the audience? I didn't quite.
I guess I want to get a sense of what, anything that could help us with our decision making and what we're going to
Mhm.
wear that relates to, if you have this kind of body type, you maybe want to think about this sort of look or shaping more than anything else? Or you may want to know if you're larger, this might help you to look slimmer. If you're small, this may help you to appear a bit larger on stage. So yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so this is always the first thing we look at what kind of shapes and colors work for a specific person. And the system I work with is quite complex. I don't like the, apple inverted triangle sort of thing,
Okay.
because it's people are very different. It's very important. It's actually, think of it as looking balanced, right? You want your speech to be balanced and you want your look to be balanced as well. So helping to shape, kind of put your shape into golden ratio is one of the ways to minimize distractions. I guess I can't really go into specifics now of explaining, because it is quite complex, but it's what I would recommend for listeners. If you want to work out what your body type is, things like height is really important, because you could be, say, curvy or angular, but if you're petite or tall, that will have different result. And try to find celebrities of whose style you like and who have similar body types. So look at, as I mentioned now, look at things like angularity or curves, and have you got, I don't know, broad shoulders or waistline, the length, like is your body tall, long or short, and then try to find similar people, and then start creating inspirational, like a folder with inspirational pictures, and then it will help you concentrate on what works specifically for you. Because what tends to happen is we look at images of somebody and we're like, I love this person's style, but they might work well for those specific items and silhouettes because they have different body type, and it might not work for you.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. And I get that there's going to be specifics that you would do. You individualize the process when you work with people that might make it a bit harder to give more generalized principles around this as well. But I think there's some good guidance there to take a look, and let's see if you can find people in the public eye who have a similar shape and size to you that might be able to give you some style guides. I'll go and check out George Clooney and Brad Pitt, because I look just like, no, I don't look anything like that. But I'm sure there are some celebrities out there that have some similarity to me as well. Let me ask you this: when you work with, I'm sure we work particularly with people who are in corporate speaking as well, is it the case that for men and for women that it has to be a suit and it has to be a shirt, or is there more scope for what people can wear in those sorts of speaking environments?
Well, in fact, I always say that it doesn't have to be a suit, because, as I said, you always look at your own branding and your own style, what you are comfortable with, and then you try to kind of match it with the audience. But a lot of speakers I work with obviously go to speak in front of a corporate audience, and they quite often are not dressed in suits, because I always say that you come into that audience, front of that audience, you are bringing your own story, right? And that's why they hired you. They hired you for your story and for your expertise. And you
Right.
can show that within your outfit as well. For some people, a suit is something which they're comfortable with. They like putting a suit on and the back straightened up. They feel like a speaker, like an authority. It's almost like they get into that role. It helps them to get into that role. But for other people, they like more relaxed style, and that's totally fine as well.
So potentially you could get away with even wearing jeans on stage as a corporate speaker if that's your style. Is that right?
Jeans, not necessarily, but there are loads of other ways to hit that smart casual look. And especially now with wider fit, with maybe more relaxed fabrics, I always still think it needs to be premium. The stuff which you wear, especially for male speakers, it's crucial, because the silhouettes are not as diverse, right? So
Mm.
they really need to concentrate on the quality. But you can definitely go with minimal sneakers, even if your look is more relaxed. sorry, even if you're wearing maybe not jeans, but something, like smart chinos, or there are other things out there which are not jeans, but they're not a part of a suit. So you kind of hit that tone of smart casual, which is quite difficult. I would say that's probably the hardest thing for people to hit the right note with. They're a bit unsure. Some people are sure about their smart look or their casual look, but how do I hit that smart casual look?
Yeah. How many looks are different looks as a minimum would a speaker do you think generally need if they're speaking on a regular basis? Is it just one or two looks, or should there be several outfits that they kind of work between, or maybe it depends on where they're going to speak? I mean, what are some of the things that you've experienced there?
That's a really good question. Obviously, there are different types of audiences. Sometimes people speak in front of 5,000 people, sometimes 230 people, and it will determine the tone of what they're wearing as well. So you do need to have a variety. I don't like to dictate the number of outfits. I would say maybe minimum would be 5, 6, so that you at least cover the different audiences and have a couple of different looks for each. Also, you have things like different color backgrounds, different temperatures, and things like that. What I would say is we are all different. Some of us like clothes, some of us don't. For people who don't like clothes, it's better to stick to a simple formula which you can repeat. A famous example is Steve Jobs, the same outfit. And you can do that, or that is obviously quite extreme, but you can come close to that. But other people who like expressing themselves through clothes, they might have a huge wardrobe, and that's okay as well. But what would be really helpful, what I recommend people do, is that they digitize their wardrobe so that they can keep tabs on what they actually own, and they don't buy the same thing twice
Yeah.
if they already have it in their wardrobe. And the easiest way to do it, folders on your phone. You can create different folders of these are my shirts, these are my trousers, dresses, jackets, and so on. uh, I also recommend to do a Canva document where you put all of those looks next to each other, and you can kind of get an overview. You can print it out. Ultimately, whatever you personally find the easiest to digest, so
Yeah.
that you have the visual reference of what you've got, is really useful. I heard this story from one of my clients recently that he had a tailor with whom he did all of his made to measure suits. So he ordered a new suit. He came home with the new suit, opened the wardrobe, and realized he already had exactly the same suit and the same fabric. And he was furious because he spent a lot of money on it. And he said, why don't they have a record of which fabrics I've already used as a customer? So having your wardrobe digitized definitely helps with to avoid that kind of problem.
Yeah, great. And yeah, Canva whiteboards are great for doing things like that as well, for helping you see all that. I love that. And I know if we went into my wardrobe, we'd probably mostly just see 100 different polo shirts. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what I'm generally going to be wearing for speaking gigs. And
Are
I
they
do find
in different colors or the same color?
they are in different colors. So probably the majority are in black, but I
Uh-huh.
have a bunch that are in. I have like red, green, blue. This one's sort of olive color today.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I do like a range of colors with that as well. But I tend to wear black ones when I'm doing speaking work.
Okay. You
But
kind of you're more on Steve Jobs side of things, where you like it simple.
I like it simple, and I like something that I feel comfortable in and can move around with, and so ideally something that has a collar on it as well, but isn't actually a shirt. So yeah, I think that's where polo shirts meet the right balance for me, and tend to fit better. You know, I'm a little on the larger side, so they tend to fit better than like dress shirts and stuff as well. Although I do sometimes like that too. It's always good to get these style tips and advice from somebody like yourself when it comes to if we think about putting a wardrobe together, what would you recommend as a sort of budget to get yourself started? What would be a good budget to take? You said you want to have quality stuff, you want to make sure it's good. If you can, for those who are looking to do this, what would be an kind of budget to be able to go and shop for the speaker outfits?
That's a great question. I actually have a resource which is called a budget calculator, a clothing budget calculator, which I can share with you if you like. What it does depend. What I would suggest is always look at your existing wardrobe and see first what you actually need to get, because chances are you don't need to start from scratch. And it also depends on which bucket of what kind of budget you want to spend for clothes. I would say probably looking at how much you earn and then thinking about 10% of that if you want to get a lot of stuff. I don't recommend to go to like high street. So high street can differ. So normally what I recommend is kind of higher end of high street. So you don't have to go astronomical on brands.
Yeah.
Making sure that you have good quality clothes is important.
So would it be like, would you maybe advise somebody to find a professional tailor or seamstress?
100%. I would say it's crucial. A lot of people take it as a luxury, but I think it is an absolute necessity because it can completely transform the look of what you've got. I've encountered it with clients quite often where we go through the existing wardrobe and we take everything out and they put it on and I say, all you need to do is just make it a bit smaller on the waist so that it fits in the right place, and it completely transforms the whole look. And all of a sudden, they've got an item which they already had and didn't know why they didn't wear it. Something was wrong, even though it seemed okay. And with that little change, they can wear that item all the time.
Yeah, I do think for guys particularly, and for some women as well, it's a good idea to have at least one properly fitted suit in your life. But if you're a speaker, probably more. Yeah, it's going to be
Yes, but
helpful.
also I definitely think it's for both male and female speakers. And especially, for petite women, for example, it's almost every single thing, even if they do buy stuff in petite sizes, they still need a seamstress to adjust the length. So literally checking with every single item which you buy, like every single pair of trousers and a shirt, a jacket.
That's great. Are there, when it comes to trends and fashions, is it better to maybe go for more classic looks, or is it okay to kind of go with some trends, or does it just depend on the person?
Trends are really important. And you remember in the beginning of our conversation, I was talking about the two buckets for credibility. So one was fit, the second one is being current and looking up to date. And a lot of people disregard trends because they think it's too fashiony. But in fact, looking at long term trends, which have been around for 10 years, even, crucial because this is another way to connect with your audience. If you look out of date, people might think, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that your ideas are also out of date. And you don't want that as a speaker. And they will feel that you're part of their tribe. It's the same way as when you hear a song lots of times, you start humming that song, you become familiar with it. In the same way, when we see people wearing certain things online and in real life, we get used to, our eye gets used to it, our brain gets used to it. So people in the audience, when they see things you're wearing which they can relate to, they automatically relate to you faster. They can trust you faster. And yeah, so looking at trends and training your brain on what is in style now is very important as part of being credible.
No, it's worth thinking about, and it makes sense to me as well. I get that. Is like if you have at least something that shows that you are keeping with the times. I hadn't considered what you said there. We hadn't ever thought about that before, like how people might judge you on if you don't show those signs of that you're aware of what current trends are, but you might seem a little out of touch. Is like, yeah, that makes sense. And as someone who is over 50 now, I certainly think when I was in my 20s and 30s, I cared way more about that stuff than I do now. But I get now as like, okay, I'm older, maybe don't care about it, but I should still pay some attention to it for exactly those reasons. So
A lot of speakers I work with, they are older, and some of them would be in the 60s and the 70s even. And it's, I would say, even more crucial for older speakers to look into it to make sure that they look up to date, because I hear this, especially from female speakers who are older, that they feel like they're getting booked less now that they become older. And looking current is definitely one of the easy things they can do to eliminate that problem.
yeah. And is that just small adjustments, or and what kind of things would like could we just currently male and female think about doing to help us be a bit more current and get in touch with some of the latest trends?
The main thing to look at is actually the details: your footwear, your accessories, your jewelry, your hairstyle, your makeup. This is what makes or breaks the outfit. So I would recommend to, in the same way as I said, try to find your celebrities who have similar body type. You might want to look into celebrities who have similar hairstyle or similar hair type to you, or and it would apply to men as well. And with, for example, facial hair, what kind of facial hair, like what kind of beard shapes are in style now, right? The same with footwear. So you can ask ChatGPT for help. You can Google what are current trends on footwear. And I guess a lot of it now is with being more relaxed, right? So it's looking into minimal sneakers instead of some more dressy shoes. But that's not to say that you shouldn't have dressy shoes, because in some circumstances you do need them. So looking at the styles which are current within the footwear is important.
Yeah, I think I can't try and remember. Recently I was having a conversation. I can't even remember if it was on the podcast now, but it was to do with paying attention. It was on the podcast. It was to do with paying attention to things like people's shoes as part of viewing the context of the person, as like that how much you can tell a lot about somebody just by the shoes. There's actually Keith Kong, a guy who's a professional mentalist, and this is one of the things he was saying is like when he has to do quick evaluations on people on stage when he's working with them for the mind reading and techniques and stuff. And the shoes is one of the first things he looks at because it tells you so much about a person. So
Oh
um
wow, I absolutely love this actually. That I didn't think about that. Yeah, I should look into it and maybe even chat. What is this person's name?
oh, Keith Kong, super super nice guy. I'll connect you with him if you'd like to.
Okay.
But yeah, he's based in Vegas and he's a professional mentalist. And so I was asking him, like, oh, is it like things like someone has very pristine shoes, they're like shiny, they're really smart, you can tell so. And he said, yeah, and it's the same as someone's got really scruffy shoes on or they're falling apart or whatever else. You
Uh,
can tells you something about their character. They've come out for an evening out. This is what they've chosen to wear for that. It's probably how they don't generally show up. So it gives you an insight into their character. It's part of the how you kind of what you mentioned, that how you dress is part of the context of who you are, that it's giving your audience clues, whether consciously or unconsciously,
mhm.
about who you are.
Yes, brilliant. I love that.
Excellent. Are there a few sort of style do's and don'ts? I know you covered some good stuff already, but some particular style do's or don'ts that we could probably benefit from your wisdom and insights?
I would give you one, which is less is more. If you're unsure, for example, as I mentioned now, like accessories can make it or break it, jewelry, hairstyle. If you are unsure, it's always better to go less, because it's less chance of making a mistake. So that, and also, as I mentioned, the fit, just making sure that the fit is right of whatever you're wearing. And I guess making sure your clothes is not creased, things like that. Practicing in front of a mirror in your outfit while delivering your talk
Yeah.
in advance.
Yes, I was kind of thinking just then it sort of occurred to me that your look as a speaker, your outfit is a bit like perfume or a cologne. Now, if you put too much perfume or cologne on it, it's going to stink.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you wear one that doesn't suit you, it's going to smell bad. It's going to stand out. But if you wear a perfume or cologne that does really suit you, and you just have a light spray of it, it's going to be almost unnoticeable. If you do notice it, if you do happen to think about it, you can think, oh, it just seems right. It looks good. No, it smells good on you. Same with your outfits. It looks good on you. You mentioned about things being a distraction. It's like, the too much or too little or the wrong thing is a distraction. Whereas when I think maybe where you've got the right kind of look for you is where it's just not a distraction and it feels right for you, and people may notice it, but generally don't even think about it because it just seems right for you.
I'm going to use this thing with the perfume. I love that. I love that
please,
metaphor.
please
Thank
do,
you.
yeah, please do. You're very welcome to it. My gift to you from this episode. When's just sort of because I'm curious, when someone does come to work with you, and I can see why people would I definitely would encourage it. How long would they generally work with you for?
I tend to prefer to work with people over a longer period of time because I don't believe that you can go to the shops with somebody for 2 hours and they come out joyful and transformed. It takes time for that transformation, for you to get to know yourself and for me to get to know you. So I tend to work with people over 3 months period to kind of get naturally, organically to the place of where they're happy with the results. And I'm always driven by the results to make sure that they're happy with what they get. And I achieve that either through one-to-one work, or I also have a group style program where I take people exactly through the same process, which I take my one-to-one clients through. And that allows group program is also 3 months long. So it allows for the same time for them to get that transformation.
Fantastic. Do you ever go shopping with your clients or take them to their tailors to help them pick out their outfits?
Of course, yes, with the one-to-one clients, and I love a combination of online shopping and in-person shopping. As I developed this business after COVID started, I developed all the processes online, and you get so much more choice online versus in shops these days. Some brands are simply they don't have physical stores, or even those which do have physical stores, the choice of their online stock is much bigger. So it's always nice to have a combination of both.
That's great. Yeah, I love this. I don't think I've seen like I listen to other sort of professional communication and speaking podcasts, and I don't think I've ever seen one episode where anyone's really talked about how you look on stage and how to style yourself as a speaker. So I love that you're doing this, and I'm pretty sure people who may be watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast may be thinking about, oh, I might be interested in working with Kayers, maybe one to one, maybe in your group program. What's the best way for them to find out more about you?
I love meeting people on LinkedIn. So if you're listening to this podcast, connect with me on LinkedIn and say that you listened to the episode, and I would love to start a conversation.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that the links to connect with you are in the description and the show notes for people who want to do that. I do encourage it as well. Do you share content on there with style tips as well if we follow you on social media?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes, there's a lot of free content which you can check out.
Fantastic. Well, another good reason to come and connect with you, Kay. It's been a real delight to chat with you today. This is such an interesting topic, an important one that I think so many speakers don't really think about, or they're trying to figure it out for themselves. And maybe we shouldn't be, because most of us don't have a clue about fashion and style. Better to go to someone who has a bit more of an idea and can guide us to look really good, because I do think that whole context thing is super important. An absolute pleasure chatting with you, Kay. I hope people will come and connect with you, and thank you for coming and being my guest today.
And thank you for having me.
So there you have it. Style isn't about fashion as much as it's about communication. Now, Kay reminded us today that what you wear on stage isn't superficial, it's strategic. Your look helps shape how your audience perceives your authority, energy, and relevance. Whether you're speaking to thousands or leading a workshop, your outfit is a part of your message. And if you're ready to show up with more presence, polish, and personal power, reach out to Kay on LinkedIn, send her a message, mention this show, and start leveling up your visual influence. Now, next episode on Friday, we'll be continuing the series of Robert Cialdini's Tools of Influence for Speakers. If you haven't already been following that series, I think we are at number 5 out of 7 now. So do go and check out those previous episodes. You can find them on your podcast channel or you can find them on YouTube, whichever you prefer. I recommend YouTube because there's a lot more visual stuff going on there. There is content I'm putting on YouTube that is not coming onto the podcast. So do make sure you are subscribed to the show there as well. Otherwise, you might be missing out on some content that you might just enjoy. You can also find clips and highlights from particular shows and other content that I'm putting out there. And if you are interested in following some of my stand-up comedy, that's going to be the place for you to find it. Hope to see you there.